Hello, beautiful people. Mic check, mic check.
Yeah, test.
Good to go. I'm Fabrizio Shao.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alex Pogos, AI Scholars. I'm just going to guide him through the conversation, and we're going to have a nice chat about decentralized community building. So I guess the first question that I have, and I guess everyone would as well, is how did you come into the Cardano ecosystem?
So I found out about Cardano last year in February, around February. It was right during the time of the whole stock market with the whole GameStop and AMC. I don't know if you guys really know about that. But my friends were making good living. So I was like, hey, teach me. So they started guiding me in that direction. And for some reason, this energy, I have to call it energy because if I use any other term, I'm going to get some feedback, some unwanted feedback. But before I start, actually, something I forgot that I need to do. You want some?
No, I'm going to pass.
So yeah, I need to do this really quick, just to be able to sugarcoat. Just sugarcoating, nothing big deal. So that's a little bit of my sugarcoat, because there's usually an issue of me not being able to say things, the proper way. Now, I found out about Cardano through stock market, which is interesting. The energy kept pushing me towards crypto. And then I bumped into a YouTube video by Charles Hoskinson, listened to him talk a little bit, and I was like, okay, this seems like this is the proper platform for me to find a way and eradicate discrimination and build inclusivity.
Okay. So you stumbled across the Cardano ecosystem, you saw Charles Hoskinson's video, and then what were the next steps for you to kind of become the ambassador that you are right now?
So the next steps, basically, once I realized that there's an entity, there's a project out there that has the same vision that I have, I basically just reached out through LinkedIn to one of the people, Mihaela Ulieru, actually, who is part of IOG, and I said, hey, this is my vision, this is who I am, and this is what I'd like to bring to this ecosystem, the value that I'd like to bring to this ecosystem. About after a few days later, I got a reply back, and long story short, here we are.
Okay, so now that we know his background and how he kind of fell into the role, I want to see how you see community building. It can take on various forms. There's the traditional, there's the non-traditional, but what are some examples of you and your decentralized thought process to coming and building community around Cardano and this ecosystem?
So the way I look at it is we are in an industry that is very complicated in terms of technology. I personally, as an ambassador, I also struggle to really understand, everything that is within the Cardano ecosystem. And most people out there seem to get very demotivated once they understand that, oh, this is about crypto or about blockchain technology. So I try to bring it basically in the other perspective of just using passion of lifestyle of whatever I'm doing, and showcase how my lifestyle is allowing me to build the freedom that I have now. The best way to put this is basically, before I realized what Cardano was about, before I even got into this community, the only thing I looked forward to was, I would say, a wheelchair basketball tournament. As a 3-time national champion with the Rolling Knicks, I was always excited about, okay, I have a tournament coming up. And we would go to the tournament, we would fly out there, and it would be very exciting. But once it happens for a few years, you realize that it's a very small niche, and it almost feels like society. And before I continue, when I mean by society, I mean everybody outside of this room, everybody that is not in the Cardano ecosystem, because the way I look at it is very simple. If we are able to showcase our lifestyle, then it would really create the passion, because passion is what I try as much as I can to bring to this table.
Okay, so in the almost year now, or just over a year that I've known you, you've had these very unconventional ways of bringing community together. Sometimes it takes the form of you hosting people in our hometown. Sometimes it takes the form of you driving cross country. Can you give us some examples of, just day-to-day interactions that you have and how you're bringing awareness to the ecosystem and bringing people together?
I think the most recent interaction that I can say, and I believe that person is in the crowd right now, and I'm glad that we had this interaction, was a topic of discussion during CNFTCon last week. And the question was, what is this event? What value does the C in the NFT bring? And that question really threw me off because we were at dinner, and as the Cardano ambassador, there's a lot of value that the C brings. When we say C, we mean Cardano, but let's try to remove the Cardano from the equation. And if we do that, then what's left? It's what the people here are about. And if I go to Alex and I say, hey Alex, let's build a wheelchair company, or let's build something, we don't necessarily need Cardano technology to build that. We could build it regardless. What Cardano does is it connects people. So yes, let's just say that at CNFTCon, everybody there knew each other, but that's not the point. The point is they knew each other through a social media. They knew each other through Twitter, because I'm watching people interact, and as they're interacting, they're coming like this and they're saying, hi, nice to meet you. I feel like after a full year in this ecosystem, after building projects together, it really shouldn't be, hey, oh, yeah, fine, nice to meet you. It should be, hey, man, good to see you. Good to see you again. Good to see you again. We don't have that, and that's one of the biggest issues. So that is what CNFTCon is for. That's what the C stands for. It's building this first. Once we build this, we can slowly, very slowly, improve the society out there. Not society in here, the society out there.
Okay, so based on my interactions with you, what's the wildest thing that you've done to raise awareness, and how has it been received by the public? Because I do recall you going to Champ Medici's after party and raising some awareness in a very unconventional sense, and the response was interesting. And that kind of ties into how you see yourself in the Cardano community.
I mean, there's a lot of different crazy experiences that have happened to me, but I would say a good one is the latest one that happened to me. I don't get starstruck, let's just put it this way, when I meet certain people. It's not part of my system. Being a part of Madison Square Garden, just meeting a lot of people, it does not faze me. But I do have a favorite YouTuber, and I wanted to reach out to him before coming to CNFTCon and to Colorado. Unfortunately, because of timing, because of issues with the travel, with the road trip, I was not able to email this specific individual. But because of this energy that I keep talking about for the past year, I pulled over to the side of the road to take a picture, and for some reason on the I-70, this YouTuber that has 1.5 million followers just passed right in front of me. What are the chances for that moment to actually happen? And if I was by myself, and I would tell this story right now, people would be like, oh, no, you're probably just lying, or just a really small coincidence. But I've had 3 people with me during that trip that can vouch of how everything just played out. And honestly, there's really no reason for me to bump into that YouTuber at that moment. So it's not about the craziness, it's about just this, it's about this crazy energy that I feel within the Cardano ecosystem.
Yeah, and the example that came to my mind was when Shao was at this NFT NYC after party, he went in the middle of the crowd and he did a handstand with his wheelchair. And his wheelchair had the Cardano logo on it. Later on, about, I don't know, like a half hour later, this really influential Instagrammer took a picture of his wheelchair and made a comment, and that's kind of what I wanted you to discuss about. She said, what is a Cardano wheelchair doing at this party? And I wanted to know how that ties into your sense of experience.
Thank you for bringing that question up. And just so I have an understanding of kind of like the people that are in here, just for a raise of hands, how many of you outside of the Cardano ecosystem, when you're doing something, there are times when you feel like you don't belong there? Just a raise of hands. Wow, okay, I did not expect that. And that's great, actually, that we have people who feel that way, because that's what Cardano does, right? You feel like you don't belong in a specific environment or in a specific party or a specific club, And then all of a sudden you're surrounded by a community that makes you feel welcome, that makes you feel like you belong. And that, we're gonna just go back really quickly to that story about wheelchair basketball, that excitement of just, oh, okay, I'm gonna go to a tournament. But then again, who am I surrounded with at that moment? Which is people who are like me, which is not a bad thing, but then it shows that we're put in the corner of a room in society. Like, oh, this is your little space, you go here, this is where you belong. But now it's much more than that. Now I can come into an ecosystem like this and I can talk about anything I'd like to, and I feel welcomed by every single person. Last year, talked about building a wheelchair company with Charles. What was it? 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, Anthony, a mechanical engineer who's part of this ecosystem, reaches out to me and says, let's do it. These are things that would never, ever happen to me, especially outside of this ecosystem. So it's a full range of just hope, motivation, and freedom.
Yeah, and I think that's the heart of the Cardano community, right? Just based off my personal experience, I met Shao in a Zoom call, wearing headphones, talking in the background. I had no idea who he was. And then later on when I went to the Cardano Summit, for whatever reason I couldn't actually enter the building. I'm sure Jeff might be in the crowd, but he's from Cardano NYC. He brought the crowd out to me. And that is unheard of at any event. So that's when I was immediately drawn to this community and where our relationship really started off. What I'd like to talk about now is, so we talked about the past, we talked about your present ways of community building. What do you see the future of decentralized community building and your role in that?
Well, I think, in my personal opinion, that the future is based on the youth. That the youth is what's going to be building our world moving forward. And just focusing on being able to not necessarily educate them, because that's a word that can be viewed in different ways, but just guide them in the proper direction of where our society could be improved. It's just offering kids opportunities that they never had. I was not the type of person who's going to be going to school, getting scholarships and start doing coding. It just never was part of my lifestyle. But I was still given an opportunity through wheelchair basketball to showcase my ability, which most people like to call inability, right? But we can say that inability is not necessarily, a disability is not necessarily an ability. So just wheelchair basketball, being able to have a wheelchair provided to me, gave me the opportunity to explore the lifestyle. So scholarships to kids that can really help them, get their education that they need and improve society. Do the things that I can't do.
Okay. Are there any specific programs with respect to scholarships that you're kind of?
Well, I think that Atala Prism is doing something amazing with the students in Ethiopia, and that is one thing that I would like to really focus on moving forward. As a Cardano ambassador, and I'm sure that there are people here who like to consider themselves Cardano ambassador, we spread ourselves thin. It is a very big ecosystem with a lot of different topics to talk about, and people have different passions and different interests. So I feel like my niche right now is just being able to tap into the youth and help them as much as I can.
Perfect. So we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A. If anyone has any questions, I do have a microphone, and I'm happy to come down and address any questions that you might have for Shao about his role in decentralized community building. Anybody? 3?
Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
1 second. Let me come down to you.
I know that's one of the things. Is like, how do I ask? How am I going to ask this guy in a wheelchair a question that I've had on my mind for a very long time? Well, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here, because most people will not want to take this spot. And I think that throughout my experiences, I've built the tough skin to answer any of the questions that you have. That's also why I took the sugar, so I could be able to answer it in a more appropriate way.
Hi, Fabrizio.
Hey, Tom.
So you kind of spoke at length about having this feeling of an energy in the community that I think a lot of us feel is unique in the Web3 space. The strength of our community comes from just a genuine interest in doing good and coming together in an inclusive way. And I do think it's quite strong. You feel it with people that you meet here, people that feel passionately about the project. I think of it as like a resonance almost. that draws in more and more like-minded people who kind of share this mindset and this desire to drive change. What advice would you have for this audience in terms of how to go further and do more to kind of bring more people kind of into the fold? I've had conversations with people over the years, and running into people at conferences and other places, and they may say things like, I was interested in cryptocurrency, but I didn't know how to get more involved. I felt like I needed to become a developer to participate more directly, but I'm just not technical enough. I don't understand a lot of these complicated concepts. I'm studying and trying to learn, but I'm, like you said, I'm intimidated, or I feel like I have a barrier to entry. Now, given that you had explained to the crowd here that you were coming without a technical background, what advice would you have for people to help make others feel comfortable coming in and understanding that you don't have to be a developer to be part of the Cardano community?
So that's a great question, Tom. Thank you for putting it that way, because most people say, hey, when should I buy and when should I sell? And that question just drives me insane. I check the price of ADA maybe once a month, maybe every 2 months. It's the advice that I would give to the people that struggle is basically explain to the person that you're trying to get into the ecosystem why it works for you, why this helps you. And I've thought about it for the past year and a half. I can't find one single reason or one single individual that can say, this is what I like to do, this is my lifestyle, this is my passion, but unfortunately, none of it fits in the blockchain space. It doesn't happen. Everything that a person likes to do, it could fit into the blockchain space. It's just the fact that people are not aware of that, which goes back to just educating students, educating the young people that blockchain is much more than just a price. It's about what we're doing right here, because as I'm talking to you guys, I'm not thinking about the price of ADA. I'm thinking about how can I build something. And it doesn't require, again, it doesn't require technology, because we can build something. If the internet, if the lights go off right now, we can still, the people in here, we can still build something insane. So again, it's not about necessarily the technology, it's about the people and the energy that you create within each other, which is why a real life event like this is crucial. And a Twitter space is not as valuable, in my opinion. It's valuable because it connects people, but not to the level that they should be connected. I've traveled with 2 individuals that have been working together for over a year on a big project, and they met in New York because they took a road trip with me to Vegas, and that's when they hugged each other and said, good to meet you. That to me is just very strange. I personally can't envision working with somebody that I haven't met. What if one of them does something in their life that the other one doesn't enjoy or doesn't agree with? They wouldn't be able to know that. But right away, the first 2 hours that we hung out, they're like, oh, you do that? I didn't know you do that. I do it too. I was scared to show you that I was doing it. So that's what real life showcases, and that's what the Twitter space does not. And I think that's also why Alex is asking the questions now, because most people are like, hey, get on a Twitter space so I can interview you. I'm sorry, it's just there's no time for that. We need to be out and about. We need to show people in real life why we're here.
Response, Shao. And I'd like to real quickly address the same question, actually, which is tell people to use the protocol, right? One of the biggest reasons why I got into Cardano initially was because I was livid with gas fees. You can't do DeFi if 40% of your margin is going to paying the gas fees. So we have deterministic fees, but the only way I knew that is to use it. So as people are starting to think about how to come into this ecosystem, I always tell them, buy the coin, transfer it to a private wallet, and look at the difference between these various protocols, because Cardano is going to stand out like a sore thumb, but it's only through use. With that, does anyone else have any other questions?
I want a tougher question. I want a question that does not necessarily revolve around Cardano. And I know they're out there. It's just people feel reserved about that. And I'd like to break that ice, because in order to really make discrimination a thing of the past, I need the support of the people, and I need the questions to be asked so I can answer them in the most appropriate way possible. I can't just start spewing things out without a need of a question, so.
Well, I'll have one for you. What's the most, I suppose, controversial aspect that you've encountered during your community building? That you
The
faced?
most controversial? Yeah. Well, as much as I love the Cardano community, there's bad actors everywhere. There's bad actors everywhere. And even in this space, I've been approached and I've been asked in very blunt ways as to what value do you bring? What exactly are you doing here and why are you here? And those questions are the ones that drive me even further and push me even more, because it shows me that some people are just unable to see more than, I guess, a few months or more than what's in front of them. They're unable to see, to really think outside the box. And this is a perfect opportunity to really showcase that we can do things outside the box. Let's think of Crypto.com. They're spending billions and billions of dollars on marketing. We don't need to do that. We can do marketing in very, very affordable ways. One quick example is the GQ magazine, which could be controversial. They say, hey, you need to wear this specific outfit, but there's a loophole here. They can't, not that they can't afford, but they're not willing to offer you a wheelchair. So you have to come in with your own wheelchair, and then you could have whatever branding you want on that. So that is the controversial side of things. It's like, hey, you're using the sympathy card. Not necessarily, it's not a sympathy card that I'm using. I'm just trying to bring reality to our industry. If I wasn't there to have somebody tweet about my chair and it's like, why is the Cardano wheelchair doing here? I wouldn't be able to expose that more. So by me being there, somebody called me out and I was able to respond to that.
Okay. And one last question I believe that is going to be of great value to the audience, because I believe most protocols and most projects in this community, in the blockchain community, the value comes from the community itself, your early adopters and how to maintain their awareness and their dedication. So as a community builder, what advice do you have to the audience in terms of community building? What can they do? What not to do? What's the secret sauce?
The secret sauce that I realized, and this has only been for the past 6 months for me, is just to be yourself. The more a person is able to be themselves and they feel like, okay, I belong in this space, the more their own passion comes out. And when an individual passion comes out, people can see it. People can buy into it and people can believe it. If you bluntly just approach someone and say, oh, let me just tell you how beautiful Cardano is, and you're just trying to sell a pitch, people run away, people roll away. And I make sure that the best way that I prevent people from walking away from me or rolling away from me is just to tell them, hey, this is who I am, this is what I like to do, and this is how I do it, and this is the platform that helped me to do all the things that I want to do. What would you like to do? Okay, let me help you explore how Cardano can basically bring value to whatever that person is interested in. So if everybody here can do the same thing, showcase to your friends, to your family, to the stranger next door why you love Cardano, and not that it's just the technology that's going to help, but why it's important for you specifically, that is the selling point. That is the buying point.
That's fantastic. And I'd like to add on to that. Last night, Tom Flynn had a really interesting phrase, and I'd like to communicate that to everyone here. He said, inspiration is fuel. Whatever inspires you, whatever drives you to create that, they say necessity is the mother of all invention, communicate that to the community. And I think it's going to help you build a lot more bridges that way when they understand what inspired you to do what you're doing. So with that, I think we're about to wrap it up. If anyone has any other questions, I'm happy to take them. Otherwise, right there. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
So how do you see people from marginalized and disabled communities leveraging blockchain technology to reclaim and assert autonomy? And you're building on Cardano in particular. What appeals to you about this protocol as opposed to something like, say,
I'm sorry, could you repeat that last part again?
Oh, okay. How do you see people, especially from marginalized and disabled communities, leveraging blockchain technology to reclaim and reassert their autonomy? And in particular, you're building on Cardano. What appeals to you about this protocol that you don't see on other chains, such as like Tezos, Chia, Algorand?
Well, the first question, the way you asked the question is how can Cardano help the disabled community? Well, one interesting way that I found myself associated is we have this thing in America whenever we have to go to a specific place and they need an elevator or they need an accessible route for you, they call it ADA. They call it American Disability Association. Now, Ada Lovelace and American Disability, is there an association? No, there isn't. But that is the energy, that is a sign for me that this is my space. Before being involved in this space, I was surviving off of a Social Security income provided by the government. And with that income based on where I live in New York City, I wouldn't even be able to pay my rent, to be honest with you. I would just have to, okay, let me just live on the street so I can eat some good food. And I don't really see how somebody living on the street can bring value. Now, Cardano has been able to provide for me a space where I can express myself through sports, through cars, through everything that I enjoy, everything that I like. I'm not stepping out of my comfort zone and saying, oh, let me learn Haskell because that's the only way I could bring value to this ecosystem. I'm just being myself, and if the community sees that and appreciates that, that's all there is to it.
Oh, we got 2 more hands. 1 second.
Hi there. My name's Juan. I work for JPEG as a writer, researcher. And in the world of open source code, you can just copy paste the code in the chains, but you can't copy paste community. So when we talk about the strength of these blockchains and these communities, it kind of depends on the original foundation of the community. So from your perspective, who would you go for to be the foundation on which we should build Cardano or any community? Who would you kind of like go and target?
Do you mean who would I approach in order to get assistance in the ecosystem?
Not necessarily assistance, but when we're talking about mass adoption and bringing people into these ecosystems, the earlier that these people are, they kind of become the foundation, the personality. So like, for example, Charles with his whiteboard video, he attracted gold-hearted gigabrains, and that became the core. So, for example, my perspective is I'm a writer. I want to attract people into the ecosystem. Who should I be writing towards to like kind of build and nurture the early foundation to create a really strong community for the next, hundreds of years?
Well, I really think that really goes back to the educating the youth. As if we can showcase as much of what Cardano, not just Cardano, but what blockchain technology is, early stages in middle schools, in high schools, and in colleges, I believe that we're slowly going to transition the mindset of, and I feel like a lot of people share this vision with me, is like, oh, well, why do I need to go to college, or why do I need to get an education? And they feel like it's not worth it. They feel like they're being taught something that they don't want to learn. Blockchain technology is different. This is something that is the future, and if we're able to provide it to them in a non-scary way, I believe that that is the way. That is the way of mass adoption. And another way of mass adoption is making people interact with something specifically and not knowing that they're interacting right away with the blockchain space. Because again, it scares them. We have the wool of the sheep being tracked in the blockchain space. A lot of people didn't even know that exists out there. So if we're able to make people play a game and just say, hey, play this game, they play it, and then a day later or a week later, they're like, what is this thing that I earned? That's mass adoption, because now they're like, okay, well, I'm going to keep playing this game. Can we build a game that's about being a game first and then play to earn? Not just, oh, let's do a play to earn and then a game. So mass adoption is through making people realize that you're not throwing them to the wolves.
Excellent, thank you.
One more question, sure. One more question.
Questions are coming.
Hi, Fabrizio. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
My name's Bruce. I go by Cardano Bruce in Twitter Spaces, but one of my entities is as a project assessor or proposal assessor in Project Catalyst. And I've heard rumors to the effect that people are going to put together a challenge setting for the Cardano ambassadors. And I wanted to hear from you, your perspective. First of all, I want to thank you for the inspiration that you provide to a lot of us. And inspiration is fuel. But I would like to know if there were a a specific challenge setting created for ambassadors, for Cardano ambassadors. What would you like to see in said challenge setting?
Well, if there was let me just make sure I understand the question properly. You're basically asking if we were to put a proposal on the Catalyst for ambassadors, in which direction would I envision that to go towards? Is that basically the question?
Yes, but it doesn't have to be limited to a proposal. It could be an entire challenge setting that would allow for multiple proposals, but that it would earmark a certain amount of funds for all of those proposals so that there would be guaranteed funding for ambassadors. And then from that pool of funding, different projects could make proposals.
Okay, well, we'll use this as the last question since we got to wrap up. And I'm glad that we kind of get to wrap this up with a Catalyst proposal for ambassadors. The simplest way I see it is, as I speak to a bunch of ambassadors within the ecosystem, I realize the passion that's there and the value that they want to bring, but they're just unable to do so. If we're able to basically build up a proposal where we can offer the funds for not every single ambassador, because we all want to be ambassadors. We all want resources to do something, but in all honesty, not everybody is able to bring up the same sort of value. So if we can get a nice group of ambassadors and be able to provide them a budget where they can just roam around and do what they love to do, that'd be great. We have the Cardano Caravan, who they're doing amazing things. I mean, they're traveling cross country with people, and they're doing videos, and they're trying to showcase the passion within our community, but they're not able to do their project entirely because of the lack of funding. Now let's think about what could they do, what kind of message they can send out there if they had the resources that they needed. So just being able to provide the resources to ambassadors that bring real value, I think, is what matters. I'm not trying to demotivate anybody who doesn't see that they belong as an ambassador, but value is very important, especially in our ecosystem that we're in right now. And I think with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for all your questions. Thank you. Thank you so much. Alex, appreciate you.